Dream cars, British supercars. McLaren, Aston Martin, and Bentley. These are the most exclusive British brands who manufacture the fastest, most spectacular, and most beautiful super sports cars in the world. Cars of breathtaking elegance and with exceptional performance. England is the mother country of motorsports. In no other country are there more races week for week than in England. From club sports events to international motorsport events, and that for over 100 years. No wonder that from the outset, British supercars are nothing but racing cars with number plates, characterized by superior engine performance and exciting design. After the war, Jaguar built the XK120. With a top speed of 200 kilometers an hour, the XK is the fastest car in the world and the first supercar of the modern era. The list of British supercars is long. Following on from the XK are the Jaguar XK SS, the E-Type, and the Aston Martin DB4 Zagato. In the first wave of super sports cars, Jaguar built the XJ220 in the 1980s, the fastest supercar in the world. In the 1990s, there was only one supercar still being built in England, the McLaren BMW F1. In the new millennium, there has been a renaissance for British supercars, new, breathtaking race cars with number plates. An Aston Martin, which would be too tough even for James Bond. The V12 Vantage S, uncompromising in its lines, a black painted radiator grille and 4 prominent cooling grills on the long hood.
With the V12 Vantage S, one has taken something from the Golf GTI. One just takes a big, strong machine, in this case the V12 6-litre, and takes the car to 330 kilometers an hour, which makes it the most powerful and fastest Aston Martin.
Such a small car with an engine as large as that of the V12 Vantage S can't be found anywhere else. In the interior, the powerful Aston is rather luxurious. Lots of carbon, light sports seats, and finely applied leather. Whether accelerating on a straightaway or when hunting curves, despite its abundant power, the Vantage S obeys the driver's commands perfectly.
In such a small car, and one with rear-wheel drive, you would think that the back immediately slides out if you step a bit on the accelerator. But the guys from Aston Martin have such a clever weight distribution, namely almost 50-50 from the front to the rear axle, that I really have to press the accelerator very hard before the tail breaks back out.
Not much bigger than a Porsche Cayman, the Vantage S with its 12 cylinders is an agile supercar, loud, fast, powerful, and yet elegant as only an Aston Martin can be. This is a highly sought-after Aston Martin with a high collector's value, too costly to be driven around the Nürburgring at racing speed. The V12 Zagato. The V12 Zagato only came off the production line 101 times. The Zagato takes its chassis from the V12 Vantage. The fiery red sports get-up is from the Italian designer Zagato. It's mainly the large rear spoiler and the oval grille that dominate the design of the Zagato. British restraint is foreign to it. It's designed for the racetrack. There, at the 24-hour race on the Nürburgring, it immediately earns its first laurels and wins its class. As long as 50 years ago, Aston Martin commissioned the Italian design studio Zagato to design a car, the DB4 GT. 3 Zagato models are converted into racing cars. Stirling Moss and Graham Hill win several races with them. There is no trim. The body is formed with breathtaking curves. The windows are made of plexiglass. The Zagato is actually built for competition and not for beauty contests.
Definitely one of the most beautiful sports cars of all time, the Aston Martin DB4 Zagato. Combination of British understatement and Italian elegance. Sensational design.
Despite its beauty, the DB4 GT sells only 19 units. This is due at the time to its high price, and on the other hand, to the fact that without bumpers and a thin aluminum body, on the road, it's nothing more than a vulnerable aristocrat. A car like a statement. The Bentley Continental GT Speed, the top model of the Continental production range.
The GT Speed doesn't look like a typical super sports car, especially not like an Italian one, simply because it has a certain British restrained opulence.
While other supercars struggle to find a slim and flat line, the GT Speed, with its great body volume, represents an excess of attributes. Posh, elegant, luxurious. The Bentley signals British self-confidence in its appearance. Beneath its exterior, there's a German will to win, in the form of a W12 engine taken from the Audi A8.
The car has 635 horsepower, and that's why the rear spoiler moves out automatically at 145 kilometers an hour. At 180, the car lowers by 15 millimeters, and at 245 kilometers an hour, again by another 6 millimeters. In this way, the car actually reaches 331 top.
The Bentley W12 goes like a Learjet on the straight. There you can chase every Ferrari or Lamborghini with it. But even more impressive is the speed in the curves. It's almost light-footed in the curves through this all-wheel drive. You simply don't believe it if you see this car standing. And latest, when one has driven it, you know why this car is a supercar.
The GT Speed develops its strength with turbine-like ease and, despite its mass, remains tantalizing to drive, even through curves. No other car combines so much power in abundance with so much noblesse as the GT Speed. It is the perfect car for quick snobs. A noble sports car with a spoiler in the rear, the Bentley GT3R. Even if the rear seats are lacking for reasons of weight, you don't have to suffer in the racing Bentley. The car can still be delivered with plush, air-conditioned leather seats containing a fan. Compared with the normal Continental, the racing Bentley has a somewhat stiffer suspension. Its 4 wheels distribute the power dynamically, and the gear ratio is shorter, so the GT3R is significantly more agile.
The GT3R is a real racing car for the road. It steers to the centimetre, and with the all-wheel drive and this short transmission ratio, one can be early on the throttle and then accelerate really fast out of the bends, just as you would need to on the track.
100 kilos lighter, 50 horsepower more than the standard version, limited to 300 units. The GT3R represents a synthesis of performance and luxury for life in the fast lane. It's exciting, it's fast, and very, very British. The Aston Martin Vanquish.
If there is a prototype of an English supercar, then it's definitely the Vanquish. It has nearly 600 horsepower, but it doesn't appear so extreme, as for example, the Italian supercars would.
6 liters of displacement, 576 horsepower. The performance of the Vanquish is more than opulent, so you can drive it very relaxed, or very quickly.
With 1.7 tons and nearly 5 meters in length, it is of course neither the lightest nor the smallest, but still moves dynamically and agile, and is still almost easy to control at the limit.
A design made completely of carbon above the aluminum chassis.
No matter from which perspective, the Aston Martin Vanquish simply looks good. Flat, dashing, not oversized, sporty, but not really aggressive.
The Vanquish, a sculpture on 4 wheels with a perfectly sculpted body. When it comes to luxury and performance, the Vanquish is the best the United Kingdom has to offer. McLaren, the name of the British racing team, is synonymous like no other with Formula One and high tech. McLaren built, for example, the first carbon fiber monocoque in Formula One. In addition, 20 years ago, the British built a still legendary supercar, the McLaren F1 BMW. In 2011, the constructor brings Formula One technology back onto the road with the MP412C. Formula One world champions Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton are involved in the development of the car. No wonder that they're impressed by McLaren. The entry into the world of McLaren sports cars is provided by the models of the so-called sports series, the small supercars.
Looks more like a sports car than a status symbol. Typical mid-engine sports car looks more reserved than one is actually used to in this class.
Butterfly wing doors, a flat front end and rounded rear lights. In the cockpit, leather and carbon. Moreover, nothing which could distract the driver. The 570S follows the typical McLaren design. On the road, a heavyweight. On the scales, a lightweight. The carbon chassis of the 570S weighs only 75 kilos. The whole car just 1.3 tons. Like its big brother, the 650S, the 570S is also powered by a large 3.8-liter twin-turbo V8, which is a little constricted in this model. Nevertheless, the turbos blow enough power into the V8 so that the McLaren reaches 200 kilometers per hour in 9.5 seconds. The suspension is comfortable but hard, the steering as precise as a scalpel. the 570S dashes elegantly and without body rock through the curves. It offers more Formula One fascination than its competitors from Porsche, Ferrari, and Audi. The McLaren 650S is the first step in the evolution of the MP412. Equipped with many design elements of the Hyper P1 sports car, the 650S arouses a driver's appetite. In the end, there is hardly any other supercar that looks as fast standing still. Only the name sounds very technical, because a dream car name that will do it justice hasn't yet been invented.
650S. That sounds a bit like my tax return form. How can you give a dream car like this such an unemotional name? One can see that it's fast, without it looking flashy or being intrusive. Exactly my idea of a dream car.
The 650S hugs the road in an alluring way.
You can easily move it incredibly fast to the limit, which is simply fascinating.
Sophisticated aerodynamics, burly road holding, uncompromising suspension. The 650S allows for very high cornering speeds and sucks itself firmly onto the racing line, unswervingly like a racing car. Hardly any other supercar puts the lure of power into action so seductively. A car that never existed before in this form, conceived and created in the high-tech laboratory of one of the most famous Formula One factories of the world, the McLaren P1. The McLaren P1 looks as if it were designed for an astronaut. Every millimeter, sophisticated aerodynamics. No line is used for the optics. The form follows function alone.
When you see the P1, you can already see this car is simply fast. It's developed purely on aerodynamics and speed in the wind tunnel, and that's exactly what you see in the car.
You can't create a car body much more spectacular than that of the P1. Every seam and every surface directs the air and provides cooling and downforce. The acceleration is an explosive force, like a rocket during launch. The P1 reaches a speed of 300 kilometers per hour in just 16.5 seconds.
Two very cool features are once again the booster. When you press there, it gives an extra power kick, and the DRS. On corner exit, the wing is almost flat, so that in the straight line, again, one has more speed.
With its perfect aerodynamics, the car allows for insane cornering speeds. It sucks itself firmly onto the road.
Flaps in the underbody, a rear wing which produces up to 600 kilos of downforce. The P1 cuts through the wind like a jet.
This is Formula One for the road, and it is perhaps the fastest production sports car in the world.
Powered with McLaren's know-how from 50 years of motorsports, the P1 is more of a rocket than a sports car, with driving performance for land vehicles surpassed only by Formula One cars. The P1 is currently the most extreme supercar. Limited to 375 models, it will always remain what it is. A car that is apparently not from this world. And our next car also seems out of this world. So spectacular, so stunning, so unprecedented, that it could just as well have come from the future. The Jaguar CX-75. From the outset, the CX is in the spotlight. First, because of its unique drivetrain, a combination of electric motor and gas turbine. Then, as the automotive star of the James Bond movie, Spectre.
If we remember the film Spectre, when Mr. Hinks chases James Bond through Rome, in which car does he do it? In this beautiful CX-75, perhaps one of the most beautiful sports cars of all time.
The design of the CX is bold and gorgeous at the same time. Naturally flowing lines and reduced elegant shapes. The Jaguar appears like a mixture of space glider and racing car. The original electric gas turbine hybrid of the CX has been replaced by Jaguar after several years of research by a no less extravagant drive. A hybrid consisting of 2 electric motors and a high-speed downsized 4-cylinder engine with turbo and superchargers, developed by the Williams Formula One team. Despite all the development work on the CX-75, in the end, it won't go into production.
What a pity that the CX-75 did not go into production. It would have been a real challenger for the Porsche Spider 918, the Ferrari LaFerrari, and the McLaren P1.
So the most beautiful and exciting super sports car of the present remains only a dream car, a study, a movie car for James Bond's adversaries. Whether elegant coupe, radical driving machine, or high-performance car, the super sports cars from Bentley, Aston Martin, and McLaren are amongst the most exclusive supercars in the world, built for speed and designed with unique British flair. That's why British supercars are the only supercars that have as much style and class as horsepower.